Hello and welcome to Starts and Grafts. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'm Connor, and each week I'm joined by an emerging artist to discuss the highs and lows of forging a creative career during a global pandemic. My guest this week is a drummer who is more commonly known as Busking Joe. Under normal circumstances, he can be found outside some of the country's largest venues and festivals, entertaining crowds of gig-goers. His journey so far has been documented through the short film Saving for a Tour Van and demonstrates his ability to talk and connect with anyone and everyone. He's got plenty of other projects going on besides busking, and I look forward to finding out a little bit more about them during our conversation. Joey Swindells, welcome to Starts and Grafts. How are you doing?
Hey, you right? Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's good to speak to you.
Not a problem. Where are you recording from, Joey?
Recording from inside my van in a car park in Newcastle.
Nice. What's the weather like? Is it snowy up there?
Yeah, it has been. We was up kind of near Northumberland.
Yeah.
And got stuck in the snow for a couple of days. But in Newcastle, it's not been too bad actually. Yeah.
It's mental, isn't it? I was thinking 24 hours ago, we were all sitting down to hear Boris Johnson tell us that we're going into the third national lockdown, which is just crazy. It was like for me that someone had just flicked a switch in my brain that completely changed my mood, and I've had a crappy 24 hours and a whole, crappy day, but it's been nice knowing that I'm going to be able to record this podcast at the end of the day. It's a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel for me. And it also means that our podcast is no longer, it's not going to be redundant anytime soon, because nobody can get out there and gig and perform like they would have been able to if things were progressing a little bit quicker. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to having this chat now. I can't wait to find out a little bit more about the van later on. But I think a really good starting point is your busking. I've not seen you for quite a long time. We went to sixth form together, and it's been so exciting keeping track of what you've been up to on social media. So what was it that made you want to start busking in the first place?
I don't really know, to be honest. It's an awful answer that, isn't it? But thinking about it, really, there were two main ones. Like, the first one, the primary thing was just I needed some money. Like, I started busking when I was at uni. Like, basically, I'd gone out and busked with some of my friends like a few times in Newcastle, and that was just for a laugh and just for the sake of doing music. And it was like we just jammed on Northumberland Street, and yeah, it was mint. I think the biggest thing with me is just I genuinely love playing music with other people and in front of people. Like, I just love doing it. But then after I'd done that a few times and I was at uni, I think I can't remember if I was at uni or I just graduated, and I was just skint, and I contemplated, going working for Deliveroo, but then I just went out busking a few times on my own, and I thought I'm not going to make any more doing Deliveroo than I am playing drums on the street. So I just kind of cracked on with it, and then it just basically went from there, really.
Well, I suppose it's the easiest way to actually make music, and you might not get a large sum of money back from it, but it's the easiest way. You literally just take yourself and your instruments to somewhere that's probably well populated.
Oh yeah.
And see how it goes from there. But I suppose what's interesting about you is that you're a drummer, so it's quite different to being a singer who can accompany themselves on a high street, or being someone who can play to a backing track, really. How do you choose or know what to play for such a long period of time?
Well, at first it was a big learning curve figuring out how to play in an entertaining way where it's just drums. And like the first time I ever went out on my own busking, it was basic because I was gonna busk with one of my friends, and just like I got to the spot where we were gonna have, and he just texted me, he just went, "Here mate, something's come up, I can't come, really sorry." So I thought, I'm here anyway, I might as well just crack on. I played with the idea of playing drums on my own a few times. I had a couple of beat ideas, and I just kind of just started jamming out like that. But rather than thinking of like in terms of like playing a full song, like with an introduction versus chorus or that kind of thing.
Yeah, traditional format.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just thinking of I'm trying to do dance music, really. Do you know what I mean? As long as I keep my bass and my hi-hat like just do that constantly, and then I can kind of improvise with my hands over the top. any kind of multiple of 4, I'll just drop out the bass drum, or I'll drop out the hi-hat, do a little fill, and then back into it again.
Well, it seems to be a winning formula because I was thinking about this in a pre-COVID, society. We see buskers everywhere performing up and down the high streets that we go down, and it's quite hard, I think, for a busker to really stand out and get attention. But you seem to have this way of just being able to command a huge crowd of people and create such a buzz.
Yeah.
Does it come really naturally?
To be honest, it does, I think. But like the first times I had big crowds was like, so if anyone listening who doesn't know, my forte before COVID, it wasn't like necessarily busking in a city centre like on the high street. It was busking outside of gigs. So obviously the thing that's good about that is everyone who's there is into the music. They've gone to have a night out, so they're in the good mood. They probably had a couple of cans, and I'd just play as everyone walked in and then as everyone walked out. And then the first big one I had was outside I think it was Arctic Monkeys or something like that. And this was the first, I'd had a couple of crowds around me, probably like 30, 40 people, something like that, which for me were mint and I loved it. But then there was this one particular one where I was playing and halfway through, I kind of looked up and there was like hundreds of people more. It would have been at that point the biggest gig that I've ever done, even with bands or anything. And in terms of like dealing with that kind of crowd, just little old me on my bill kind of thing, there was a moment where I looked up and I saw all this and I just started panicking. I was like, oh my God, what's going on? How am I going to deal with this? But then I just said to myself, I said, you've not really got an option here, lad. You're just going to have to make it work somehow. And I didn't even have a chance to think about it after that. And I just kind of just went with it. And you kind of play off their energy. So if they're going mad, I'll go a bit more mad. It's about ebbs and flows, I think. So like you build them up and then pull back, build them up, pull back kind of thing.
You talked about that gig in Newcastle outside the Arctic Monkeys, and I think there's images of that and there's videos of that are circulated on Facebook and they've gathered thousands of views, and it's crazy. You've kind of been able to build this persona of yourself. But do you remember the first time that you did go viral?
Well, that was actually that Arctic Monkeys one, and it was that in that moment where I kind of thought like, I've got to sink or swim here. That I realised I thought it's not like a normal busk. This I knew it was some. I wasn't thinking about it going viral. I was just thinking about how am I going to survive the next 20 minutes without making a fool of myself.
How am I going to keep my money safe?
Oh well, yeah, that exactly. But like that was the time, and I remember there was a moment where I kind of thought this feels different to anything that I've experienced before. And then it was my mate's wedding the next day. Ross, who plays in my band Kahuna, and we're at his wedding, and me and all the rest of the lads out of Kahuna, like we're watching this video, just we're going mentally, like we're just getting thousands of views, and then it were getting hundreds of thousands of views, and then that Charlotte off Geordie Shore shared it, and then it went off, and then Lad Bible got hold of it, and then it went off. And I didn't have any social medias at the time. So like Ben, who's a trumpet player, was like, lad, you've got to get an Instagram, you've got to get a Twitter. And he set us one up then.
But that must be so surreal. So you've basically gone out with the idea that I'm broke, need like a bit of money. And then next thing, it's all over Facebook. You've gathered such quite a big following now on Instagram as well.
Yeah.
And I think people actively go out and tag you. So do you now, when you go to gigs, do you take, bits that have I am Busking Joe, check me out and follow me and stuff like that?
Yeah, so like pre-COVID, I basically have a few like little busking kits that I'll take out with me, and it'll either be. But the main thing that this drum kit's got to be when you're busking is like mobile. So usually I'd have it all packing, into like an old, like an old suitcase your mum and dad would have when you was like in school, and it was
Proper
like
hard shell suitcase.
yeah, exactly. And I'd just pack it all into that, and then when I opened it and it was empty because the drums are set up, I'd just have a sign on the inside that says I am Busking Joe, or I'm saving for a tour van, or these are my socials, and then people just chuck the money in there. But it's quite a big sign, so that helped.
It's quite interesting, really, because you've almost put a bit of a business-like head onto something like that. I can imagine people do it when they're obviously gigging and they're creating music and things like that. But I'm interested in the fact that you've been able to kind of create this Busking Joe, not a persona as stuff, because we know it's you and you're that charismatic anyway. But you've been able to pitch it at a level where loads of people are able to engage with it, and you've got this online following. Do you select specific gigs that you like to play outside of? Is it very much similar things each time, or do you kind of mix them up?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I would basically do every single gig I could humanly do. So that's why I got the van. So basically, every single day that I could be busking outside of a gig, I would take that opportunity. So that means I was doing stuff like Jerry Cinnamon one day, and then Little Mix the next day, and then Rod Stewart the next day.
Yeah.
So it was a big range, but there were definitely ones that were the funniest to do. So like Jerry Cinnamon, Liam Gallagher, Noel Gallagher,
Yeah.
the Cortinas, anything where it was like kind of people who like football, or it was a bit Larry. Anything like that was always the best. And there was I was in Glasgow one time, busking outside the arena there, and there's a burger stand there, and I was chatting to the bloke there, and obviously he's doing the same kind of thing as me, catching the people when they come in and out. And I said to him, I said, "So which do you reckon are the best ones?" And he says to me, he goes, "The best ones are the ones where the crowd could kick your head in at any minute." And he hit it on the head perfectly. The ones where it's like everyone's proper smash, dead Larry. There's cones flying all over the place. If there's a flare, even better. They're the most fun because it's just like it's a bit more intense, and I like that.
So there's almost this atmosphere of it kind of being on the brink of this is a really good party vibe, but this could also get a little bit sketchy any moment.
Yeah. For the most part, there's rarely ever thought this is really sketchy. And
Because obviously you've got lots of money there, haven't you?
Yeah.
If you're having a good day.
Yeah. And not obviously it's this pot, and like I've got a junket in the middle of it, and these pre-COVID, these people falling all over me, beers getting spilled everywhere, everyone's jumping on top of each other, people doing backflips and stuff sometimes, and it's so it's like carnage, and I'm kind of a bit of me's thinking, right, I've got to look after that money, but then I'm also thinking, right, I've got to make sure that I play in time. I've got to make sure that everyone's having a good time. I've got to make sure that no one's falling over and hurting themselves. I've got to like keep an eye out for the police. I've got to keep an eye out on. There's loads of things to think about, but it's like kind of forces you to be really in the moment, which I like.
Yeah, because essentially you're encouraging lots of people who've had a few drinks to get in one place and linger for a period of time. So I bet you're probably not the police's best friend in that respect.
Well, probably not really, but to be fair, more or less every time I were doing it, like there's always a police presence at most of these events. I'll just have a chat with them before, and I'll just say, yeah, I'm gonna do a bit of busking. I do it quite a lot. I'll explain that, I do it all the time. I say I won't let it get too out of hand.
It's like speaking to your neighbours when you're having a house party by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. And if there's like a burger van or something, you just go have a chat with them, or
But I think that really shows testament to you, and we'll talk about it when we talk about the documentary in a bit. The fact that you can make all these different connections with people and create an environment where you're comfortable with the person at the burger van next to you and the police, and it's very much you're in control, I suppose, and that's probably the rapport that you have with the people that are stood there listening to you. There's always that sense of control on your behalf. But we talked about COVID a little bit then. Did you have any big busking plans for 2020?
yeah, it was pretty much going to be more the same. Like basically, the past probably 2 years of my life has been this busking. I've kind of figured out that it's something I love doing. I was making enough money to get by. Like you say, I was getting this like a following on social media, which were meant, and I kind of just felt it seemed like the right thing for me. Do you know what I mean? I just thought I'm going to do it as much as I humanly can. I'll go busk outside every single gig I can find, and just do it as much as I can. And that was the plan. I saved up for this van, got it, and then the plan were to start to get some savings. So it would just basically do it as much as I could, and then this virus hit where it made large social gatherings illegal and deadly. So like my whole thing kind of just went. It's been a bit hard to like get to grips with. It's been weird, really.
Because it's not just your income, it's quite clearly your livelihood as well,
Yeah.
and
Oh
it's
yeah.
what you enjoy doing. So it's like a double whammy in that sense.
Yeah. It has been hard to like come to terms with, to be fair, but the first half of lockdown were good because I was converting the van rather than just like sitting at home doing nothing. And then the second half, I've been able to go out and busk on like city centres rather than the gigs. But 2020 is kind of just I've just kind of not really had much plans for it since COVID.
It's a shame, really. I think so many people wanted to box off 2020 and move straight into 2021 on a much more positive note, but now we've got this third lockdown, it's not the case. But is that what you turned to then? Is that what kept you, not sane, but like, is that what kept you going, being able to convert the van at first?
Yeah, definitely helped. Like I'm sure you're the same. Having something to focus on and like to work on, and even be a bit creative with. Yeah, it definitely helped me for that first lockdown.
Well, it's having that project, isn't it? It's having something where you can see the very start of something and what you've got to begin with, and then see the progression of it and then have quite a clear ending. I mean, I can see the van now, and anyone that's listening can see it on social media, I think, in all its glory on your Busking Joe page. But it's such a quite like a bougie, it's like a upmarket van that you'd bought and it was in nowhere near that condition. You must have learned so many new skills from converting this van.
Oh yeah, loads. Like basically, my handyman skills were I knew how to work a drill and a hammer and a saw, but I didn't have a trade. By no means an electrician or a plumber or anything like that, and I've had to learn loads of those skills to be able to like make the van a little tow van. So I did all the electrics in it. So we've got like lights in the van. We've got a little diesel eater, like it uses some electrics, a fan, yeah, and all the woodwork and stuff like that. So yeah, it was good to like be learning that, like you said, learning a skill and then seeing a project go from, in regard to this, seeing it go from just an empty panel van to like, as you say, like a bougie little home. I like that term as well, bougie.
Yeah, I'll let you have
Yeah,
that.
oh mate, I'll be taking that one absolutely. But yeah, it's been mint to like see the full process, the arc of it.
It must feel much more difficult now, though, knowing that you've completed that project and we've not got much to play with at the moment, especially when it's cold and snowy and dark outside.
Yeah,
But I really like the idea that you just went for it. You saved up for the tour van and you decided, you know what, I'm going to convert it. It links to our piece of artist advice for the week, I suppose, which comes from Dame Evelyn Glennie, who's not only an iconic musician, she's the first person to sustain a full-time career as a solo percussionist, which is just incredible. But what she said for us to share with the podcast and our listeners is listen to what you are saying to yourself, as that has an impact on your well-being, physical actions and responsiveness. Once that is in place, the world is your orchestra. You can write any kind of piece you wish for it. You've been living in the van remotely, Joey, now for the past few months. That is you, I suppose, is listening to yourself and going with your gut, isn't it? That's something that you wanted to do.
yeah,
Are
definitely.
you quite impulsive in that sense? If you've got an idea, do you often run with it?
Yeah, I am, because I have a lot of ideas. Like I'm always thinking of things. I get quite excited about things pretty quickly. I love that piece of advice that you just read there, and I think it's really important to hear because although I have a lot of ideas, the ones that are important I try and pursue, and like how I define whether they're important to me is like I think is doing this going to make me happy in the short term and in the long term, and that's what the busking work were like, and is as well. I love doing it in the moment when I'm playing on the streets, especially when there's a crowd or even when there's not, and I'm just in the right zone. It's the best feeling. It is the best feeling in the world, just in a little vein of musical goodness. And I realised a few years back that I loved that so much. And I thought, I love it so much. There don't seem to be that many downsides to it. I'm just going to do it as much as I can. And I thought, I can support myself off it. So there's no reason why I shouldn't do it all the time because it makes me happy. And I think it's a good piece of advice to get that is to kind of listen to what's important to you and then go and pursue it. Because I think it's easy to live for other people, isn't it? Or live for like what society wants and that. But you got to know what you want and you've got to pursue it. We've only got one life, kind of thing, haven't we? As far as we know, I suppose.
Exactly, and you can spend so much time mulling over whether you're going to do something or not, which was me with this podcast until someone kind of gave me that kick up the arse to go ahead and do it. But your journey has been documented in the short documentary Saving for a Tour Van, which is on YouTube. Please check it out because you can really get an insight as to what Joey is like when he's out there doing his busking. It's great me having this conversation with him now talking about it, but I would really urge anyone to just go and check it out. And it's such a good example of how you can make connections and just go for things and be impulsive. And I love it. And it's great. Was it your idea to make the documentary? How did it come about?
No, to be fair, it was the lads who made it, who like filmed it, directed it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like had the idea to do it. They were the Brindle brothers, and obviously, like we both know them from home, don't we?
Yeah, they live up the road
Because
from me.
yeah, and down the road from me as well.
Have we just learned that we live close
Yeah,
together?
yeah,
I don't want to get into Bolton geography for the listeners who might not know it too well, but oh, that's really cool.
yeah. So basically, they said to us they'd seen us doing all this busking and that, and in the same way that like I were pursuing drumming, they're pursuing filmmaking. They studied it at uni, and then they want to do that as a career. So they said like, we know you're saving for this van. Can we make a documentary about it? And like, as much as it stroked my ego a little bit, I was like, oh yeah, go on. But the big thing were like, it just sounded like a really fun project to like work on with two of my best mates. And to furthermore, that it would like help them in their creative career as well. It would mean they kind of just pitched the idea to me, and then I was like, yeah, buzzing, I'll definitely do it. And then they came up with like the arc of the story in terms of like the last 5 busks that I were doing in order to get the van. They just tagged along with me for those last 5 busks, and I think we went. What did we do? We went Scarborough, Newcastle, Edinburgh, uh,
Blackpool.
yeah, Blackpool. Yeah, that was a good one. And then to say Newcastle, Manchester, the last one.
There's two things that strike me about, well, that strike me with the documentary, that really stick out, and it's one, there's so much more to busking than meets the eye, and two, your ability to connect with people. So going to number one, there's a part of the film where you're like checking out the acoustics under a bridge, and you're making sure that people will be coming out and exiting the venue the right way and heading in your direction, and you've really got to think on your feet. Are these all different things that you learn to consider the more you started busking?
Yeah, definitely. When I first ever did it, it was down at the what was the Reebok Stadium. The Killers were playing, and it's
Right.
like just down the road from us. I set up near the train station because I thought that's where everyone will go afterwards. And then it was dead fun, so I carried on doing it. And like you say, I just kind of every time I did one, I'd learn something more about it. So it was like you've got to get yourself the right distance away from the venue, so people have got enough time to hear you. It's got to sound good. Got to not be able to like block the roads and stuff like that. A few people said that actually, like they didn't realise how much went into it. Like you say, you've got to think on your feet a bit. But I like that, me.
As opposed to you, it just comes natural now. You can probably just tip up at a venue that you've probably played before or you're familiar with and set up your stall and do all right. There's one bit that I really enjoy, and it's where there's two bits actually. There's one bit where you break your bass pedal.
Yeah,
Sorry, your bass drum, yeah, your bass drum pedal, and end up kind of doing this makeshift kind of thing. And I'm thinking, I wouldn't even be able to think of that on the spot. And then when that fails, you then end up on Facebook Marketplace. But there's a little incident with a railing
yeah. Oh,
in Edinburgh. Tell me a little bit more about that.
that was savage. That yeah. Gone up to Edinburgh, and it was the same week as the Fringe, and I think someone like Florence and the Machine. Sorry, I'm just getting my blanket here. I'm freezing in the
That's fine.
back. Yeah, so we were going up to Edinburgh. I think like Florence and the Machine or something were playing, and it was the Fringe Festival. So it was like a mint day for it, and like there was this other band playing. I had a chat with them. They were sound. Got this spot. Start playing. It's going really well. Got a bit of a crowd, and I was just doing my thing, like getting a bit cocky. Like the crowd that I had, I'd get them to clap, so they kept the beat, and then I'd go like I'd do it a few times. Like I'd go drum on like like a street sign or something like that. Any big piece of metal usually sounds really cool when you hit it with a drumstick. It's got like a weird like ring to it. So I'd get the crowd to keep the beat. I'd play on that for a bit, blah blah blah. But this time I must have been feeling extra cocky, and I thought I'm going to climb up onto this. You know them metal green electrical boxes that you see like on a high
Yeah,
street.
yeah.
So there's one of them, and it's. I thought I'm going to climb on top of this, play on the top of it. It'll be well impressive. Jump back down, finish my set. Boom! I'll look ace. So as I like go to get up on this box, I put my foot on the railing behind me to like get a leg up. I had like these knackered old pair of Vans, and as I put all my weight on my back foot to like push off the railing, I put my foot on like the spike of the railing, and it just went right into my foot, through my shoe, like absolutely impaled me. But I was in front of this big crowd, so again, this was one of them moments. Like inside my head, I was like, right, I've got two options here. That's either done a lot of damage, and I'm going to be in pain for a bit, or it's one of them things where it kind of hurts, but it's not that bad. And I thought it'll just have to be the second option. It'll have to be
There's not a
fine.
choice. It just has to be the second one.
Yeah, exactly. But I've still not got up on the box yet. So I do it. I go to do it again. I put my foot on the railing again, push off again, punch my foot again, get up on this box, do my little drumming, and by this time I'm thinking, "Fuck, that's hurting." That like do my little drumming on top of the box, jump down, finish my set on the drums, and then I'm like, it's become apparent like I'm not drumming anymore for the rest of today. Like I just gone right through my shoe, right in my foot. It's like I said, right, I'm just gonna have to have a minute because I just think I punctured my foot. And then then we just ended up going to A&E and that. So
All in a hard day's work. I think it's such a funny moment, and it's not only that; it's actually been caught on camera as well,
oh no, I
which is
know,
great. So it's not just a story; it's something that everyone can check out.
yeah.
But yeah, you kind of hear you make a bit of a noise when you've done it, and you think that didn't sound right, but maybe I've heard something, and you carry on playing, and then next thing there's this bloody sock and a puncture in your foot, which isn't great. But yeah, that's such a good moment. I think there's so many funny moments, and the whole thing's just you can really connect with it, I think. But we've talked about how you are able to go to different venues and busking spots and chat to people that are already busking and kind of say, do you mind if I jump on and do all these different things and find new people as you go on. Do you tend to get different responses to your busking in different locations?
Yeah, when I was busking the gigs, it was largely the crowd would determine what kind of response I'd get. So if it was like an older crowd, if it was Michael Bublé, for example, there'd be no flares. It'd be a lot of a lot of grannies and grandparents, and they'd all stand about and they'd have a bop and they'd always enjoy it. And that was always a nice one. But yeah, with the gigs, it was always kind of who the band were that decides it. But now, obviously, there's no gigs. So I've been busking loads in city centres, and you just get all ranges of people there. Obviously, it's not all people who love music. It's people just doing the shopping. It's like old ladies going down to the market. It's like homeless people that will stick about, have a watch.
There's always somebody dancing in Manchester in front of a busker, isn't there, on Piccadilly Gardens?
That's what you want, that though, because that'll work in your favour. Because if you can get someone dancing, even if they're making an absolute fool of themselves,
Mm,
power to them though. Do you know what I mean? You got to dance like no one's
yeah,
watching, but people start watching them, and some people film them or whatever, and then that's your opportunity to be like, right, people are watching. If I can play drums well here, I can sing well or whatever you do, you've got more people paying attention to you. So that's a good thing sometimes.
that's really interesting that depending on the gig, you can get different responses. But put Brexit aside and what that will do, are you planning to take the van, overseas and get it in Europe to see what the crowds over there will be like?
Yeah, definitely. And everyone always asks me that, but I'm a little bit wary because a lot of the times the thing that I think the reason I can get away with busking where I do is because in England I can talk, I can communicate what it's about, and I can be like, do you know what I mean? I can have a good conversation with the police or the shop owners and figure out what they want, or if they don't want me playing in this area, whatever. And then I can kind of blag it a bit and probably stay a little bit longer because I can have a chat with them. Where over in there, I think I've always been a bit hesitant of the language barrier. But having said that, everyone who I've met who's been busking over there, they always say that it's ace. So I think I'm just gonna face my fears, go over there and embrace it.
I mean, you've got the van, you've got everything you need, surely.
Well, yeah,
That's
exactly.
potential for another documentary. I mean, to be honest, I'd love to see you get arrested in France for busking in the wrong place. So
Yeah, yeah.
we'll have to see what happens there. Let's talk about the Rookery Collective, which is your business outside of busking. Tell me a little bit more about what you guys do.
Yeah, so we're a music collective and we're just all about getting people playing music together mainly. That's the biggest one. Putting on gigs and just making music happen in general. So it kind of started because me and a business partner called Robert Nugent he's called. We're both in the same band when we were 16 in Bolton. And we just love playing music, but we couldn't see a scene in front of us. I'm sure they were one, but it weren't punching us in the face like we thought a music scene should. So we were like, right, we'll start putting on jam sessions and putting on gigs and stuff like that. And we've just slowly built it up over the years. And we do events in Newcastle and Manchester, and we do public gigs. So we'll hire out a venue like the Clooney in Newcastle, or like Jimmy's in Manchester, or
Yeah, yeah.
the Castle, or something like that. Put on a jam session during the day, and then a gig in the night, and anyone can come. And then we've also started doing stuff with student accommodations. So we'll go in there, put a gig on for them, for all the students to come down and watch for free. And it's basically all about getting people doing more music, which again has been really hard to deal with through this COVID times. To be fair.
I feel so much for students at the moment. I mean, we've seen everything on the news of them being locked in their kind of tower blocks and stuff like that. Have you been able to keep up any of your connections there, or keep up any of the sessions that
Um,
you've been running?
to be honest, no, we've not. The biggest one, it was just both me and Nuge. We didn't make loads of money off the rookery, but we both kind of had like Nuge was working in hospitality, so like in bars and restaurants and stuff like that. And obviously I was doing the busking, and because we had money coming in from those things, it allowed us, like we had the rent paid. Do you know what I mean? So we could spend time on the rookery and like doing these events, which did make some money, but it was always going back into the rookery rather than in our own pockets. But since COVID, because it's been such a, obviously the hospitality industry and the gigs, they've gone completely. So we've both just been trying to pay the bills. You know what I mean? It's been hard. But we've launched like a virtual jam session on our website, which is you can just log on to it. There's loads of starting drum tracks. So like there'll be a minute 30 of some drums. You download it, put whatever musical instrument you want over the top of it, whatever you play, whatever you sing, and then you re-upload your part to it, and then someone else can download those two parts and contribute to that. So that's what we've been focusing on, really.
Oh, that's a really good idea. That's a really good idea of letting people share material and record new material. Am I right in thinking there's different types of jam that you can tap into?
Yeah, yeah. So they like on the website now. It's like there's strawberry jam, mango jam, blueberry jam, and all these kind of jams are like different genres. So we've got like a reggae one, we've got a pop one, a heavy rock one. We've got like some electric drums up there as well. But the thing that's mint about it is that if loads of people contribute to it, there's going to be like 5 or 6 different versions of the same song that people have written all independently and not knowing what, like, I would imagine most people writing songs in a band, you're getting in the same room or someone's written the song in full and you kind of flesh it out together. But with this, it's like each part is the writing process. Do you know what I mean? So like, it's all in kind of isolation, but it'll produce like different songs at the end. And I'm really excited to see if people get involved with it and all the different songs that come out of these different jam sessions.
Well, I'm hoping so, and they can find that on the Rookery Collective website. I like what you said about there being 5 or 6 different songs, because for me, one of my favourite things about music is cover versions, and the fact that a song can be written one way and it can be interpreted and presented in so many different ways, which is what's quite cool about the jam sessions that you're doing. Does this Rookery Collective online inspired jams stem from a page, let me get this right, a page that you set up when we were in sixth form, which was called Joey Swindells Will Jam With Anyone? Do you just love making music with people that much?
Yeah, like that was like the first thing that I kind of ever started on my own, and it was like, again, I was in this band. Basically, I played drums when I was like from when I was 8, and I enjoyed it and everything. But it wasn't until I got in this band and started playing with other people that I was like, it was like this light bulb moment just went off in my head. I was like, this is the best thing I've ever done ever. Fucking mint. Pardon me French, but it were. I loved it. So then I was like, I'm just going to do it as much as I can. And I was listening to one of your other podcasts. I can't remember which one it were, but you talked about how you had this moment where you were umming and ahhing about starting it, and then you kind of just took that leap.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like that's exactly what I was like with this Joey Swindells Will Jam With Anyone. I remember sitting in my music room at home, box room, like with just loads of kitting, and I remember thinking I could do this, and I thought, but like there was a bit of me that was like, I'm not going to do it.
I'm going to get ripped for it. That's what the first thing that you think is when you're that age.
Yeah,
You think, I'm going to
exactly.
get absolutely terrorised, especially as a male, as a young lad, as a teenage boy. You think, I'm going to get ripped for this. And it's wrong, isn't it, that you kind of hold off a little bit?
Yeah, it definitely is. But then it's such a good thing when you actually do take that leap. And I remember just thinking, oh, what's the worst that could happen? My mates will take mick out of me. They're going to do that anyway. So I did it. And then, I think even now it's probably only got like 50 likes or something like that. But it had let me, like, when I went up and talked to someone who I knew did music, it like gave me a bit of, what's the word? Like validity. I've got this page or whatever it is. And then when I got to university, so I moved up to Newcastle. I just started playing like I was just a feral child running around trying to do as much music as I could. And like if I saw someone on the street like with an instrument on the back, I'd just go up to them and be like, "Oh, you're right, mate. Yeah, what do you play?" And they'd be like, "Oh, I play this and that." And I'd just ask them for a jam. And I made loads of mates doing that. Like half the people thought I was a proper weirdo,
Which is fine.
and then yeah, exactly. And then the other people I made really good mates with, and like just ended up jamming with them, and it was mint. But that page was like a pivotal thing as well.
I think it's once you take that first leap, so you just doing that page, it's probably then giving you the confidence to go, you know what, I can do other things and springboard from that. And I really hope after being in these constant periods of like isolation, having to stay at home, I hope that whether it's a creative thing like making music or making art or whatever, or even doing sport, that people are just going to be so desperate to get out there when things are back to normal and just be surrounded by people, because that's where you come up with your best ideas and do your best things, and make the best work that you can make. What you've just said, being able to go up to people in the street, you never know what's going to happen. They might tell you to do one, or they might end up becoming a long-term collaborator or something. Let's talk a little bit more about you when you were younger. You said you started playing drums when you were 8 years old. Was music just always something that was a part of your life? What did you listen to when you were younger and that kind of thing?
Yeah, pretty much. Like my dad was really into music. He like all his life. But he never played anything. He started playing guitar when I was like, I don't know, like 15 or something, and then later on he started coming drumming lessons with me. But all of my like childhood, he never played anything. He just loved music, and he'd go watching and take me to loads and loads of bands when I was little, and it like proper obscure stuff as well. A lot of the time, it was like loads of reggae, loads of like anything what people would call world music now,
Mm.
like West African stuff. If anyone's listening now and fancies a couple of interesting listens, there's a group called Alifa Katore and Thierry Owen. For me, it was like I'd never heard anything like that, and then going watching it at a young age had a massive effect on me. So I love that. Um, and I just kind of saw like loads of bands with him, like over the years. And sometimes I didn't want to go, and then once I was there, I'd have a good time, and I'd just be sitting and watching these bands, and it was mint. And I think, to be honest, that had the live aspect of that had a big effect on me, because for me, a good recording's banging, obviously, but there's nothing like seeing a band or an artist play it or just pour the heart out on stage, or a busker just pouring it all out on the street. I think when you can see the emotion someone's putting into something, there's something special about that for me, definitely.
Especially when you're a young person as well. When I mean, I don't know how many people got the opportunity, but when your parents are dragging you along to gigs,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's music that they're interested in, but then you go along and almost get converted. Like you said, it's being able to see that emotion being put into it, and that person up there on that stage almost becomes godlike,
Oh, yeah.
and you become mesmerised with them, isn't it? And I think some of my favourite listening experiences are seeing someone live first and then going back and going, you know what, I'm going to check that person out. And it always happens with like supporting acts and things, doesn't it? And you think, you know what, that was really cool, I'm going to go away. And you feel like I don't know, it almost like, it's just such a weird experience. You feel like you've gained something. It's one thing listening to someone on Spotify and then going watching them gig live, which is amazing. But finding a new artist that's supporting someone you'd gone to see and going, I'm going to get into them when I get back and check them out and stuff like that. And yeah, thanks for sharing those two bands. I'll definitely check them out.
Oh, yeah, mate. Honestly, I think you'd really enjoy it. It's cool music.
No, thanks. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing everything that you've shared so far on the podcast. As we come to the end of our conversation now, I give my guests a chance to just kind of talk about and shout out people, places, groups, bands, organisations, whatever, that have played a part in their journey so far. So whether that's as a collaborator or a supporter, who are some of the people, places, things that have played a big part in Busking Joe's journey so far?
Um, Obviously, like my girlfriend Emily, she's mint. My mum, my dad, like my friends have been mint. And then everyone who's ever chucked a quid in or a penny or whatever or just stood and watched me when I've been busking, or had a chat with me, or just whatever it is, or just been a part of it. Genuinely, thank you. It's so sick that people care about it, and appreciate it. That's at the bottom of my heart. And then Nuge, who runs the rookery with me, hero, obviously the Brindle twins who did the documentary. Um, and then there's a venue in Newcastle called Little Buildings, and it's run by well, it's run by a few people, but like Alan Scorer, he had a big impact on me. Like he was just someone who's gone into running a venue. It's not an easy task, that is it. But he's like the definition of rock and roll. Do you know what I mean? Doing something because you fucking love it. It's the right thing to do. You're passionate about it, giving it all. And we did loads of rookery events down at Little Buildings, and that was like that was a big shaping impact on me. So shout out to all them, and shout out for you
Nice
for
one.
having me on as well.
Oh, thank you. You're the first person that's given me that nice little thank you at the end, so that means a lot. Cheers. I mean, you're talking about all those people that have put a pound or a penny in, and I tell you what, there must be a fair few for you to be rocking around the north of England in that bougie little van that you've got going on there. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait for people to listen to this. Cheers. Nice one.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Cheers for having us.
A huge thank you to Joey for taking the time out to be on the podcast. Now more than ever, it's inspiring to talk to people who enjoy surrounding themselves with others to make music and be creative. Please give the Rookery a Google and check out the online jams that they've got going on. Don't forget to follow us on social media at startsandgrafts on Twitter and Instagram. I've been your host Connor, Ella's been your producer, and please tune in again next week for what will be our final episode of the series. But until then, take care.